All right, we are live. Hello, hello, blissful parents. Michelle Abraham, your host here today, and I am thrilled to bring you another amazing interview. Today, I have a special guest. I have Erin Royer. So, hey, Erin, how are you doing today?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
You are so welcome. Blissful Parents, let me tell you a little bit more about Erin. Erin is the host of the podcast Parenting Beyond Discipline. Erin is LA's go-to expert in all things parenting and child's development for today's common challenges. She covers way more than just discipline. She dives into topics like self-esteem and development and health and modern parenting issues and education. Today, we're going to talk about what's going on in the world right now with our kids. Is there something underlying in your children's behavioral challenges? Is it to do with what's going on in the world right now? And when do we need to start worrying that it's not just a phase they're going through or a stage they're going through, that it might be more, and when to take action? So, Erin, thank you so much. You're also an author of The Connected Parent for Toddlers. Is that correct? Tell us a little
The
bit of.
Connected Parent's Guide to Toddlerhood. Yes.
Thank you. Sorry about that. The Connected
That's all
Parents Guide to Parenting for Toddlers. I love that. Thank you so much, Erin. And welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm
You're
excited to
welcome.
dive into this topic, a very important topic going on right now.
Absolutely. So share with us from your work in the world right now. This is something that you're talking about a lot with your clients and on your podcast. Share with us your point of view and what's happening.
So, it's interesting because now that kids really aren't at home anymore, I think a lot of us parents, I know for me, I thought things would start to get better for kids and easier for kids. We'd all just kind of start to fall right back into quote unquote normal life. Not that we'll ever have the same normal we had before, but now that kids are able to interact and have more social connection with their peers, we really kind of expected kids to just fall right back in. And, they're not adults and they've missed quite a few, well, not a few years, but a year to a year and a half of their development with social interaction and just other areas of their development. And so we're finding that they're really struggling. A lot of kids are really struggling. And as I've been talking to therapists and counselors and pediatricians and teachers, I was really surprised to hear how much that kids are struggling. They're seeing kids younger and younger dealing with mental health issues they've never seen before in kids that age, and that there was just this gap in their social abilities. And now they're trying to remember how do they interact with their peers, and they're behind in academics in many cases. And so the teachers and the staff and counselors, they're really just trying to keep up with the demand right now and helping kids manage their mental health.
That's a huge, huge job for those parents and teachers out there to really to navigate. And it's interesting. I was reading a statistic the other day that said if your child's in grade 4, the last normal school year they had was grade 2. Wow.
Yeah, that's really sobering when we really stop to think about it. And so, just seeing that these counselors and therapists they're booked out for like months. And so for kids who need some help and need some support and parents who need that extra support, it can be hard to come by. So, it's a definitely an interesting thing to navigate. And there's a lot of signs that have been showing up, for kids who are struggling. Sometimes parents think, oh, is it just a stage that they're going through? Is it, when you have kids in this age range, some of them are hitting puberty at 9 and 10 years old. So we're like, is it just puberty? Are they just going through a rough patch with some friends, or is it exacerbated by this gap that they've had in the last year and a half?
Yeah. Have you noticed or have you discovered that there is some certain things that when we can tell the difference between when it is just a stage they're going through or when it's something that's more serious to do with their health or anxiety or depression?
So the good news is that for parents who have older kids, when you have toddlers and preschoolers, it's a little bit more difficult because they're not very articulate to talk, in talking about their feelings and what's going on inside, because they just don't even know what this is. But by the time we have, school age kids, it's definitely easier. And of course, there's a spectrum because it depends on our child's temperament. So of course, the first thing is connecting with our child's temperament. Has our child always had a difficult time talking about feelings or talking about tough things, or is their child usually pretty good and pretty easy about saying I'm struggling right now? So that's the first thing, is where's my child on that spectrum? And if you have a child who talks easily about it, that definitely makes their job a lot easier. So that is the first thing.
Usually
But
the girls.
yes, and except I have a boy who's extremely sensitive, feelings aware, and is very good about sharing when he is having some difficulties. So the first thing is just, are they acting really differently for what we're used to seeing? So when you have a child who's 8, 9, 10, like, you've got a good history with that child. So things like, are they crying a lot, are getting upset a lot, weepy a lot, or even irritable? Some kids don't do upset or crying, but they'll do irritable. They just, things are bug them. Just everything is just annoying to them. It's bugging them. They don't want to deal with stuff. They'll have a low frustration tolerance, things that they used to be able to do easily, or just open a package or whatever. They'll just get really irritated very easily with things that wouldn't have bothered them at all before. And those are some things to definitely look for. Taking things very personally, when they start to take things very personally, things that would have just kind of not bothered them at all before, and all of a sudden it's like a little bit of constructive criticism and they're just falling apart. Struggling with their peers, having a hard time with friendships. These are all related to this struggle of trying to kind of reemerge into the world and reconnect with people.
Yeah, I feel like it was like we were off for a while and then we were on, right? Like there was kind of like, I think we kind of forgot about the transition period there, that maybe our kids needed a little bit more of a transition between the being at home and trying to be homeschooled or trying to learn online, to the being off for summer and then being fully back in school. I think that was kind of something that maybe as a forethought, or as like looking back in hindsight, that maybe that was something we should have looked at more as a whole. Like I feel like that reintegration. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, and also we have this whole thing right now with, are my kids in school or are my kids out of school? And I don't know what other schools are doing, but a lot of schools, and where we are, if someone in the classroom is tested positive, the kids all get sent home for 10 days. So there's just a lot of uncertainty, and there's been so much uncertainty for this entire year and a half. And so that's really difficult. And that's stressful for them and for us as parents, because we don't know if our kids are in school or out of school. So that's another area where they're just like, I don't know if I'm in school next week. And so just all that uncertainty that they're trying to manage is also very difficult. And I love what you said, that we haven't really thought about really making sure that those transitions are smooth for them, and how are we, as adults, how are we leading the way? And I think we've never been through this,
Yeah.
any of us, and so we're kind of
unprecedented
trying,
territory right now.
right? We're trying to figure this out. And so yeah, we haven't done the best job. But one thing parents can do, and the schools I have seen have done a pretty good job of this, of really just maintaining a positive attitude about, here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to handle it. Okay, next week you're home, here's the computers you're going to use at home, here's what we're going to, just taking charge and just letting the kids know it's going to be okay. We're just going to be home. We'll get through this. We'll get you back to school as soon as we can. And just letting them know that it will be okay. This is all going to go away, and that we
Wow.
have it handled.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you're sharing a perspective that I didn't even know was existing right now. I had no idea that was happening. We live in such a small town that we haven't had any COVID cases up there in our town, or our school hasn't been affected. So that's interesting to know that in some areas that's happening, where the kids are going home like every other week. That's a whole other thing to try to manage. I can't imagine the parents that are trying to work right now full time too. Like that's going to be really stressful on everyone.
Yes, yes. And we had that once so far this year. My two younger ones, my twins, were home for 10 days when there was a positive case in their class.
Yeah.
So we have
Wow.
had that already. So yeah, anyone in any kind of, metropolitan area that's got any kind of population, and that's a very
Right.
real, thing that we're contending with.
Absolutely. And if it's not happening now, it will be coming down as we head into winter, head into, that time of year where there are typically more colds and flus and things going around. Wow. Yeah. That adds a whole other layer to things too. I was thinking that, like now they're back in school full time, like how do we get them back up to speed? But no, if they're going in and out all the time, that adds a whole different thing to try to manage. Wow. Interesting. What are your thoughts on what are some things that parents can do to really help if they see their kids are starting to struggle? Are there some things that we can do as parents to help support and getting them back up to speed and reintegrated into this world?
So it's interesting because we actually just went through this week with my youngest son. So he is a very sensitive soul, and he feels things very deeply. He forms very deep friendships, very deep bonds, but he's not the kid that has like a ton of friends, kind of surface level. So, and we moved. So there was just a lot of change for him.
Mhm.
So the first thing that I did that when I really saw that he was struggling was I got him into his pediatrician, which is what I recommend parents start with the pediatrician because they can do an assessment
Mhm.
at the pediatrician's office. They will usually run a particular test of one or another that is a test that they do for finding out if a child is struggling with depression or anxiety and or both, and they will test for that and then get an assessment done, and that way you'll have your diagnosis or not, or you'll just know what level of depression or anxiety that they're dealing with, so you know how much help and how much support you need to get for them. So
Mhm.
that's the first step, is knowing what you're dealing with, and that's the quickest way, just because mental health professionals are so overwhelmed, and it's also difficult even for me, and I work in the field, to figure out where to send my kid, who's under my insurance, what do they specialize in, and then you try to
Right.
call and nobody calls you back. So it's just the easiest thing is to start with the pediatrician.
Yeah, and it's good to know that they have those assessments available because I think sometimes when we think about anxiety and depression, it's like, oh, it's something that you see or you notice, or that, and maybe it's a while before you start to really notice that this is actually something that should be paid attention to. And then to know that there is some sort of diagnostic or assessment that can happen early on instead of waiting till way later where the medication or something is needed. I think that's great to know that those resources are available for parents.
And the other thing that is really important to know, because having worked in the field, also worked with kids and with
Yeah.
parents and worked in the schools, is that, once kids, it can spiral very quickly downward. And then you're dealing with kids who are self-harming, getting into potentially drugs or alcohol or other types of
Mhm.
coping mechanisms that are very, very unhealthy. So we definitely want to try to catch them before that takes hold, because then you've got a whole other set of issues that you're trying to back out of, not just dealing with the depression, but now you've got some type of addiction, whether it's the self-harm or the alcohol or drugs or whatever they're getting into.
Yeah, that's such a good point in that prevention. Are there key indicators that we need to look for? I mean, you mentioned a lot earlier, but I guess it really is that's really not a fair question because it is so much on an individual basis. So we'll just assume that the things that you covered earlier were really good things to start looking for if we start noticing that change in behavior or things that we know our kids really well. So I can't ask you the question I was going to ask you, where tell us like the three things that we should really pay attention to. But I would assume that would be more so like, their sleeping habits or eating habits or
Mhm.
activity and their friendships are probably some things to look at, right?
And the other thing I was going to say is the clinginess. Some kids will get very clingy.
Mm.
There's two different types. They'll either get very clingy or they'll
Hmm.
become very isolated. So
Yeah.
they'll start spending more and more time alone, like not interacting with people, not interacting with the family, or they'll become very clingy and connected and want to spend more time. My son wanted to spend more time with me and wanted to spend the night with me, which is just unheard of for him. Like he never would want to, like, even he would come in and say goodnight, but he wouldn't want to snuggle even before bedtime. He loves his bed, loves to sleep. And so that was really different for him to just be like, can I just stay with you? He was
Mm.
really needing that connection.
Yeah, the connection and the safety, I think the safe space. Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting. Want to talk about you have built this community online that is for parents and a resource, and it's called yourvillageonline.com. And so can you tell us a little bit about that and what inspired you to create that and how it's helping so many parents?
So it's a website that has parenting classes. It's got, at this point, I have about 60 parenting classes and they're on demand. And I started this because I wanted to help parents to do prevention and connection early on, because I was working with children, teens, tweens, and seeing the kids who were coming into my office were the ones that just, there was just some parenting that needed some tweaking, but it gets to the point by tweens and teens where it really starts to show up and manifest in pretty big ways by that point. So I really wanted to help parents, and I realized the best way to be able to do that would be where they could just come and take any class they want, anytime they want to. They don't have to sign up. They don't have to go anywhere. They don't have to get a babysitter. They don't have to figure out the time that it works in their schedule or not.
So
Um,
appreciative. Thank you. That must have come right
yeah.
from the mom.
Yes, because
Must have
I
been
was
taking care
trying
of
to teach
yourself.
some classes to see what I liked about the instructors, what I would do differently. And it was just so hard to get in my schedule when I had 3 toddlers. I'm like, this is just
Mm.
ridiculous. So I'm like, this should be online. And then it like, ding.
Well, that's awesome. I'm so glad that you've created this community for parents. And if you guys, blissful parents out there, go check out yourvillageonline.com. I think Erin's done a fantastic job. So Erin, is it you that is the teacher of all the classes on the website as well?
Yes. So I have curated the entire list of classes. I continue to add to it over time, and I do all the instructions. So I set up all the outlines and create all the presentations, and I am the voice behind all the classes as well.
Awesome. And being the expert that you are, that's a good thing that you're the one behind all the classes. That's awesome. And I see Erin's has it all separated from like what age your child is as to which courses are applicable to that age range. So that's really awesome the way you've set that up. And you also, let's talk about your podcast too. So you have the Beyond Discipline podcast, which I think is amazing. You have over 258 episodes, guys. And if you're really resonating what we're are speaking about today, I would highly recommend you go and take a listen to episode 258, because I'm sure that Erin dives a little bit deeper into the topic that we are talking about today. And she just published an awesome episode this week. So go check it out. And Erin, tell us a little bit more about your podcast.
So I cover a lot of times I answer questions from parents. So parents will just send in questions about whatever their struggles are. I get a lot of questions about, bedtimes and nighttime struggles and not sleeping through the night. And for younger kids, the tantrums and meltdowns and healthy eating questions. But then I get all kinds of questions all the way through, elementary school and even tweens and teens, parents dealing with some of the tween and teen issues of, the respect and how do I, manage respect in my home and make sure that my tween or teen is still acting respectfully, even while they're trying to assert their independence. So I cover everything, but usually I cover a question, but sometimes if I feel like a topic is just really tugging on me, I will cover that separately, which is what I did this week.
Mhm. That's awesome. And so I'd love to hear what's your advice for parents right now that are trying to navigate. And what I really love about you, Erin, is that you're going through the exact same stuff at home right now. You have 3 kids yourself, and I think it really helps to hear an expert on this topic, but also someone who's going through it themselves at home. So I know you must have some really great takeaways for us as parents as to how we can just navigate and make the most out of the most blissful experience. Let's just put it that way. The most blissful experience we can with what's going on in the world right now.
So, one of the things, or several of the things that I've done with my son who's struggling right now is to do exactly that, help him find joy. What is it that brings him joy? And then try to maximize that for him. Because, I'm sure probably every adult listening to this, I can't imagine there isn't one who hasn't dealt with some level of depression themselves. And when you just feel like crap, you just it's just hard to find the joy, and it's hard to find bliss, and it's hard to be friendly to other people. And so helping him maximize that joy so that he can feel better, so that he can get out into the world and show more of himself. So I'm trying to help him spiral that up into a positive direction. So I've been working with him on that, helping him with friendships. We've helped connect him with a couple of friends from class that he has started to make, and we're going to work on getting some play dates. So really the term I use is scaffolding, where we're really supporting their process. And when kids are really struggling with their mental health, we're going to be really supporting them in a much bigger way than we normally will. But once they start to feel better, start to get their, get back to their more normal level of mental health, then they'll be able to start doing more of these things for themselves. But in the meantime, like, we really need to just buoy them up as much as we can. But we also, at the meantime, we need to balance, because it was really hard to drop Chandler off at school today. He was really struggling. He had a bad day yesterday. A couple of kids were mean to him on the playground. And, you got a kid who's struggling with his mental health, and then kids either hone in on that, or it was just a bad, mix. But that doesn't help anything. And so,
Mhm.
I have to help him manage that, but I can't just, protect him and leave him home all the
Can't
time
keep
because
them
he
at home
still
and
has
protect
to
them.
go out. Yeah, he needs to go out in the world. He needs to start connecting with kids. He needs to get his
Mhm.
education. And so, it's a balance. We're working on that balance of, making sure that they're safe, making sure that they're just not spiraling down so far that it's going to be harder and harder to get them back up, but also letting them go out there and just, try their best in the world today with as much support as we can give them through that process. And I talk to the school. That's another great thing. Talk to the school. I talk to the office and I'm like, he had a bad day on the playground. What should he do if this happens again? And she's like, he can come into the office. He can talk to me. He can call you. So they've been super, super supportive.
Mhm.
The school's been
That's
amazing.
nice. Yeah, we've had similar situation in our household, my daughter, and the school's been so, they don't want any bullying or the incidents that if they happen, they want to be involved, they want to know. And it's just so nice to know that you have a team of experts also in supporting you as a parent in like you helping your child get through whatever is that they're going through at that moment. So that's really great to have that feeling of support, being supported too. I love that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, I love what you're saying, about the finding joy. And I've noticed that my kids actually in the last little while when they've started having more play dates now, because I didn't have play dates for a long time, obviously because of everything that was going on. No play dates and there wasn't a lot of birthday parties, but now they've slowly started doing birthday parties and play dates again. And I've noticed a change in the pure excitement and joy that is exuberating from them because they get to have a play date and finally someone gets to come over, and that's really great to see them be able to get back to feeling like a little bit of that normalcy again in some cases. And let's just hope that we can continue down this path of keeping some of that for them, because I see how excited they get for it.
Yeah. And it's so important for them to have. That's really important for their development. And so it's so great. I've had middle school teachers even tell me like their middle schoolers are just, they're trying to reacclimate and help these kids learn how to work together as a group on a group project and how to,
Yeah.
collaborate because they haven't had to do that or been able to do that for so long.
That's so fun. Yeah, it's interesting. And I know when like the pandemic first happened, my son went to like, the only way he could see his friends or hear his friends was on playing a game together online or something. And as much as I didn't don't love the technology games, but it was allowing them to have a little bit of that like friendship and camaraderie.
I know we had the same thing because it was like the only way they got any social interaction was by getting online. And so we allowed it a lot more than I normally would have. And now we're trying to back out of it, but it's,
Yeah.
that's a whole other thing that we're trying to work on.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to ease them back into like the normal life and then
Yes,
and the retreat a little on the online stuff.
exactly.
Tricky balance. It's a hard job for us parents right now, I
It
think.
really is.
And then we don't really have any other generations to
Yes.
help us through right now because this is all new for everyone. So Erin, I want to thank you so much for spending this time with us today. It has been awesome, and I'm so grateful that you've created a community for us parents and your podcast. Guys, make sure you go out and check out yourvillageonline.com, which is Erin's community with all her courses there. You don't even have to leave your house and you can sit in your pajamas. And also her Parenting Beyond Discipline podcast. There's two of
And
them.
also, I want to say that for members,
Amazing.
we
Yeah.
do a bi-weekly chat where I get online with the parents who
Oh,
have
great.
questions and answer questions directly. And it's usually a small group of like 4 to 5 parents and me, and we just answer whatever questions people have as well. So
Well, that's a huge asset to that, to then taking it from an online program to then some interaction. So that's awesome. Erin, any last things you want to share with our parents before we let you go today?
I don't think so. We covered quite a bit today.
Okay, great. So make sure you guys go and check out all of Erin's amazing podcasts and her online community. And until next time, blissful parents, just know you're doing the best you can do. And as Erin said earlier, helping your children find a little bit of that joy, I think will help them have a more blissful experience in their life and us some more blissful parenting experiences, I think. So thank you so much, Erin. It's so great chatting with you today, and blissful parents out there. See you next week.